Dear panelists, all of you are with us today because your funds consist, some more, some less, of Japanese partners who are major Japanese companies. Basically, you signify the great revolution that happened in the last few years that led Japanese companies to become major partners to Israeli tech companies when going to Asia and everywhere in the world. Your audience are both Israelis and Japanese in Israel and in Japan, members of the chamber, members of Israel startup community, government officials, and major Japanese companies. They want to hear of your investment activity at this Corona times and your plans for the post-Corona period. They want to hear if your Japanese partners are still committed to explore and invest in Israel innovation and your expectations of what will happen after the Corona time. Will you be able to raise more money from existing and new Japanese companies? We will give each and every one of you to present the fund, his fund, and how is his operation influenced by having Japanese LPs, because this is the focus of our webinar. And we'd like to hear about your fears and hopes of working with Japan at the current and post-Corona situation. Let me just share with you briefly my personal present and past experience as a lawyer who is involved and advises in cross-border transactions between Japan and Israel for more than 20 years. First, I want to say that during these troubling months of coronavirus, we still see interest of Japanese companies in Israeli innovation. We also see that investment negotiations that started at the beginning of the year resulted in actual investment during the Corona period, both direct investments and investments through funds, VC funds like yours. In my past experience, more than 20 years ago, I led an investment from Japan, which happened just prior to the dot-com bubble crisis that some of you remember and some of you heard about. At that time, I convinced a major Japanese financial institution, today one of the big Japanese banks, to invest in 2 Israeli venture capital funds. That was at the time the largest financial investment from Japan at that time. When the crash happened, some LPs from other countries and Israeli did not meet their undertakings to the fund. I am pleased to say that the Japanese institution showed resilience and loyalty to the funds in which it was invested. So this gives us hope, and we believe and hope that this will be again like that. I would like to turn first to David. David from Vertex, who also helped me formalize some of the issues that we brought up in this, we're going to bring up in this webinar. David, you have many years of experience in recruiting Japanese LPs to Vertex. Please go ahead. Don't take more than 4 or 5 minutes, please, at this round.
Okay. Thank you very much, Zeev, and for organizing this webinar and the opportunity to speak with distinguished guests here. Vertex Ventures Israel is one of the oldest VCs in Israel. We actually started in 1997, already raised 8 funds. We have total more than $1 billion of capital that we raised in our funds. Most of our investors are, most of our capital is from Asia. Most of our investors are from Japan. We have 32 investors, LPs in our funds, totally in our funds. Some of them are financial institutions. Some of them are business corporations. We are working very, very close with all of them, or with most of our active LPs that are interested in Israel. Mr. Inaba from SBI, that is also attending this webinar, is our partner for many of our activities regarding Japan, and we are developing a lot of common interests together. I think this meeting is to talk a little bit about the effect of the coronavirus, the economy that is being evolving from this situation. If you allow me, I will talk about it a little bit now, Zeev, meaning about what I see specifically with Japan. I'm not talking, you have many general questions, I'm happy to answer, but I want to speak directly about Japan and Israel in this term. So, is it okay, Chairman? Okay. So what I see, generally speaking, with what's happening is that there are many of the processes that have started before coronavirus erupted are being slowed down. This is not only unique to Japan, but what we can see unique to situation with Japan, for example, with our portfolio companies, is the fact that the internal decision-making in Japan has been slowed down. All the nemawashi processes are completely much slower than before. We found that some of the transactions that need to be signed when the ringisho have to be completed have not been completed. It's not for all of them, but sometimes physically we heard that the person holding the hanko, the income that need to sign the ringisho, was not available because of the physical distancing of the companies that are, not all the people are attending the meetings or the physically in the office. And as you know, in Japan, there is a big meaning for the actual signing of a hanko or the income, and it's not only electronic signatures. So we saw that some of our companies, some of our portfolio companies that are working with Japanese, we are actually encouraging and helping our companies to work in Japan. So some of them face this problem. Second, of course, is the travel, not being able to travel to Japan. And Japan, like many other countries, but I think even more, a physical meeting, people face to face, is so important, especially in the beginning of the relationship. So this has been a big problem for our companies to actually create new transactions with Japanese companies. So the sales, I expect the sales of these companies of Japan to be much lower than expected for 2020. This is specifically for new transactions. Existing transactions or ongoing transactions are less sensitive to this situation because people already know each other, have gained some trust, and if the process has started before, then even through the Zoom, through the internet, we had a few deals signed. Actually, 3 deals during the last 2 months, 3 deals signed between portfolio companies and Japanese companies. So this is possible, but only for relationships that just started. Dave, I'm just asking if I have more time because there are other participants. We cannot hear you, Dave.
You cannot hear me?
Now we hear you.
Okay. Okay, let me turn now to, of course, the order is just, you know, like the order almost that was in the invitation. But let me just turn now to Atushi-san, Atushi Mizuno-san from Magenta. Magenta is relatively a new fund, consists of only Japanese LPs as much as I know, some multinationals, some local in Japan, and the GP also consists of both Japanese and Israelis. So from this point, we would like to hear you, Atsushi-san, and do you do investment at this time? Do you increase or decrease of allocation of investment in Israel due to this coronavirus? And has anything changed in the VC and startup portfolio side before and after Corona? So please go ahead and keep it short, of course.
Okay. Thank you, Zeev. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So let me first introduce myself and Magenta Venture Partners a little bit, and then answer some questions. Hi, everyone. I'm Atushi Mizuno. I'm also a member of Israel-Japan Chamber of Commerce, and also one of the partners in Magenta Venture Partners, which is an Israeli venture capital. Magenta Venture Partners is early stage venture capital operating in Israel. Our fund size is 90 million currently, and our investors are blue chip Japanese strategic investors like automotive tier 1 financial institutions and so on. Magenta focus is very related technology startup in the industry such as automotive, mobility, enterprise software, IoT, Industry 4.0, AI, fintech, and digitalization, and so on. Magenta started operation about 1.5 years ago. We have 6 portfolios already, including the one we closed recently. We are 4 experienced partners, as Zeev mentioned, 2 Israeli venture capitalists and 2 Japanese from Mitsui Group, which is one of the Japanese conglomerates. I myself originally come from a Mitsui's venture capital arm called Mitsui Global Investment. I've been living in Israel, and within 1 week, it will be my 6 years anniversary living in Israel. But my first contact to Israeli companies was 12 years ago, 2018, right after the Lehman shock. Then I visited Israel. I visited the David's office too. And I made a first investment, direct investment in Israel, startup called also in 2010. Since then, I had a chance to involve with not only the early stage investment, but also supporting a business development of Israeli companies in Japan, and engaged even acquisition of one Israeli agri-tech company. Honestly, my last 12 years with Israel was, full of great people like those panelists. I even hosted Dov come to shop, I think, when he was in Japan with the other company. Well, because I respect the state of Israel and culture and people here, I even named my kids after Hebrew words. But anyway, regarding your question, I believe the biggest impact is on the foreign investor side. They sometimes, especially for the Japanese, require to visit offices and having a face-to-face meeting, for example. We as a Magenta Venture Partners Israeli focused local venture capital, and our decision making is being made here in Israel. Therefore, we are active, and the current situation doesn't stop our activity. But moreover, if I compare to the Lehman shock, because that was my first time to come to Israel, there's a difference between the current situation and the last financial crisis that was in 2008, especially in terms of the partners in Japan. I would say, like David mentioned, many people are more comfortable, but it's more a physical issue, not going there, not coming here in Israel, rather than the mental issue that should we invest in Israel, or is it okay to visit Israel? 2008, 2009, even among the Japanese community, Israel was not well accepted due to not only the things that I mentioned, but various reasons. We as a Magenta have Japanese strategic partners, and they really want to explore more collaboration with Israeli startups, even from early stage. The current situation prevents some of the building trust, like David mentioned, and that requires visiting Japan or Israel, and that is in Japanese culture is important action. But with us having a local Israelis and Japanese here and partners in Japan, we're trying to provide more like tools for the Israeli startups to overcome the current difficulties, also to the Japanese partners too, and I think it can be solved. Has anything changed before and with Corona time? It's been said that the current situation, probably you hear that startups should secure more money. Venture capitals may see this is an opportunity to invest or explore the opportunities, but and that might cause some negotiation of valuation too. Well, however, I see there's no fundamental change. Great companies will choose good investors like we have here as a panelist, and they can raise a good number. They already raised a good number of amounts under the situation. And additionally, under this confused situation, I would say, meaningful support from the investors, partners for the management team is very, very important, more important than ever. We have a lot of talk between the management and the shareholders, and then we'll give the advice and then, any insights from the outsider, because the company management team is focusing on the operation, and they need to have some other ideas, but they don't have time. With our network, we provide early stage startups insights for their growth strategy and marketing path to the other markets. Probably is more important. And I think that people cannot move the current situation, and startups will rely more on sort of partners, local partners, like here or there. And we believe we need to brush up ourselves more. But I think those value add activity for startups is more important these days. So fundamentally, there's no, Thank you.
Thank you, Atushi-san. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You can hear me. Okay. Thank you. Now, please, I have problem on my side with the Zoom, so please watch me whenever I raise my hand. Please let me get in. Sophiya, can you hear me? Sophiya is okay. Let's move. Sophiya. Don't silence me, אל תשתיקי אותי. אני צריך להיות מסוגל לדבר ולעצור. את משתיקה אותי. Okay. Now let's go, let me turn now to Dennis. Dennis Ben from OurCrowd. OurCrowd is a very different VC, and in many aspects, it includes, LPs from Japan, but also from all over the world. And Dennis, a managing partner of OurCrowd, is working with Japanese companies and others, so he is in a good place to do the comparison. So Dennis, please proceed.
Thank you, distinguished panelists, and good afternoon, Japan. Good morning, Israel. I thought I'm going to share some slides. I think it will be easier for everyone to follow me. Sophiya, can we see the slides?
We can.
Okay.
Yes, we see the slides.
Okay, great. So, so already before the crisis, we saw a tremendous disruption in the world. 10 years ago, if you look at the biggest companies in the world, only one was tech, Microsoft, Apple. Today, when you look at the 5 biggest companies in the world, all are tech companies. Also, this is very important. The lifespan of the S&P 500 companies are decreasing. It was 50 years ago, and today it's the expected lifespan is 10 to 12 years. And the main driver behind this, I believe, is the tech transition, the internet, the smartphone. And the COVID-19 exponentially accelerated the tech use. We have seen what happened to Amazon, hiring 100,000 warehouse employees. We see what happened to Facebook, video calls doubled on WhatsApp, messaging at all-time high, and of course, Microsoft, Zoom, we are on Zoom, Netflix. But I think also in our lives, I mean, first of all, Microsoft, this is probably the most eloquent quote that I heard lately, which from Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. We have seen 2 years worth of digitalization, digital transformation in 2 months. But the important thing here is actually that it also affects our life. This is my grandmother who's 92 years old. And although I couldn't teach her yet how to use Zoom, but I taught her how to use Skype. And we are Skyping every day. So COVID-19 really reaches new demographics. This is my wife, who is a yoga teacher, and she used to have private clients. Now she had to move her yoga training online. So obviously, this is just the tip of the iceberg, how consumer behavior changed. Think about online grocery shopping. And look at Britain's parliament, now finally doing virtual work. And you can get, in New York, you can get married via Zoom. Telemedicine, which was once the hardest sell, can't keep up with the demand. And obviously working from home, probably the biggest disruption in our lives. But what it also affects, if you look at, imagine real estate, look at what Morgan Stanley's CEO and what Barclays CEO said, crowded offices could be a thing of the past. Now, I think many jobs are suitable for what we call WFH, working from home. However, in the last 3 recessions, all the 3 recessions were followed by spikes of automation. And I believe this is going to be even more true this time. We're going to see potentially tens of millions of US jobs lost after this recession. So the question is how strong you emerge on the other side. It really depends on your actions right now, or possibly even yesterday. And I'm not sure where all the listeners are, but how is your sector affected? It's either, but it's going to through either what I call an evolution or a revolution. Obviously, travel, entertainment, education, manufacturing, they have to go through some kind of revolution. But even other industries will also have to go through some kind of transformation or acceleration. So my message for the startups is really to reevaluate. Basic message is cut your burn, extend your runway, reevaluate the CAC LTV ratio, sales cycles, churn, lifetime value must be reassessed. You have to stay relevant. This is what we feel. The technologies for fighting pandemics are not just one-time trendy things, but they are here to stay, and think and focus on long-term trends, which not necessarily means medical. It can be distance learning, automation, e-commerce, etc. If you are an investor, be calm and look at and think long-term. Investments are made during these times. True, many investors will focus on their current portfolio and they may stay away, but smart investors will be out on the offense. Cash, if you have cash, cash is king, but look for good terms. Look for the terms. Some of the best deals surface at these times, and valuations are negatively affected. There will be a lot of down rounds. So terms will improve, renegotiate, look for discounts, ratchets, warrants, and make sure you back winners. And that not necessarily means only corona thesis and or medical, but it could be anything around it, which could be automation and home-related activities, enhancement of communication infrastructure, etc. So one important thing is that don't forget, great companies are built both in good and bad times. So if you look at Uber, Airbnb, Google, Salesforce, they were all actually started during bad times. So few words about OurCrowd. Few words about OurCrowd is that we are Israel's most active investor with $1.4 billion, 200 portfolio companies, 22 funds, 100 other companies, and 37 exits. And if you see here, you see a lot of big names who are investors or clients. We work with many.
Dennis, Dennis, can you hear me?
Yes.
I would like you, and also, when we give the microphone to the rest of you, please maybe give 2 sentences about who you are, but the rest just focus on what is happening, or what are your feelings, or your what do you learn these days on the relationship with Japan.
Yes, so,
So
I'm getting...
so please, so I know that I'm cutting you short on all your slides, but please focus on Japan only.
Sure. So actually we're gonna get there now. So if you see here, we work with Hitachi, Honda, Toyota, and these Japanese investors. What we've seen here is, so I got to the slide here, that what we've seen here is that for the last couple of years, Japanese corporations in Israel has really picked up. They became very active. But what we have known as Japanese, I think all of us know very well that the Japanese corporations and investors often dubbed a little bit, sometimes risk averse and certainly not moving maybe too fast, very careful. But I think the coronavirus actually really kind of accelerated this pace. They became even more active. So when we speak to our clients, the nice to haves, which they always like to talk about, now became must-haves. So many of the big Japanese clients are now moving into AI, robotics, automation, and they are looking for new business lines such as medical, agriculture, even if that's not their core business. So what we have really seen is very, very interesting, that the major Japanese corporations, that I can only speak to what our clients, based on our clients, their experience with our clients, they actually accelerated the path. And they really it's a very optimistic view and experience what we have with them. Back to you.
Thank you, Dennis. Dennis, let me stop you here, and I want to turn to Dov Moran. Dov Moran is of course, to those who don't know him, I don't think there is anyone who doesn't know him, but he is an Israeli entrepreneur, an inventor, an investor, best known as the inventor of the USB memory stick, and one of the prominent Israeli high-tech leaders. He is managing director of Grow, which is a new VC with Japanese LPs. Dov, we are curious, with your vast experience, how is it working with the Japanese investor prior and these days, and how do you evaluate the post-corona relations between the Japanese business community and the Israeli ecosystem?
So first of all, thank you very much for organizing it. let me do small corrections. We are not such a new VC, compared maybe to others. We are already 5 years. It's our second fund. Our first fund was $110 million. This is the new fund is $123 million. We do have Japanese investors in the first fund, and we actually added new LPs to the second fund. Two words about the fund. I want to do selling. We are a unique fund, deep technology. The fund investors, the investor teams consist of 5 people. Majority of them came from technology entrepreneurship. For myself, I established M Systems, USB flash drive, took it to over $1 billion sales, so to SanDisk $1.6 billion. I have a partner that actually his achievements are even higher than that, so I feel small compared to him. That's okay. As I said, the focus is deep technology, which is more semiconductor, digital health, artificial intelligence, core, and things like that. What we saw at the Corona time, clearly everybody is suffering. Everybody is suffering. By the way, we took a decision, not driven by any request from anybody, to lower our management fees because of the Corona time. And I'm proud of that. I think that everybody should consider it at least. We are talking constantly with our investors. They are suffering. There are still, some of them are still at home or working partially. Clearly, Corona would change things in the high-tech industry, much more focused toward the digital health and pharma and medical devices and sensors and data collection and analysis. Lucky for us, we do have some companies that this is exactly their focus. We do see from some of our Japanese investors request for doing business, understanding business in Israel, maybe acquire business in Israel at some time, maybe investing in business in order to do cooperation. So what we heard in a conversation we had yesterday, actually, was the request is for more digital health and things related. And this is very, very obvious because this is the big jump that we are going to see. Yeah, we are very happy to be here to serve our partners, the Japanese investors. We do feel as true partners. We know the Japanese mentality. As you know, Zeev, I have been to Japan many, many times and had great relations with many Japanese companies. So we do feel that this is a true partnership. And we will continue to do whatever we can to help them, whether we can meet face-to-face or not. No doubt that face-to-face meetings are important, no doubt. But we are getting back to that, I think, and it's a matter of whether it's going to be 2 weeks, 2 months, not 2 years, much less than 2 years.
Thank you, Dov. Let me, everybody is, of course, mentioning the lack of personal meetings, which is so important in working with Japanese. I turn your attention to the article I wrote in our last, newsletter that we sent to all of you and all members of the chamber, in which I suggest that the two governments will consider opening the borders specifically between Japan and Israel, because I think that the nature of the travelers between these two countries on one hand, and the fact that Israel is so small, such relatively a very small country, exposes the two countries to much less risk of coronavirus than opening the borders with others. But if we go further, then of course, Dov, you mentioned telemedicine and that, and this brings us, of course, to Yusuke-san from SBI. SBI is a fund that is, to the best of my knowledge, is very much biopharma focused, and health is now the crisis, and so much is being said about the need for innovation in medicine as vaccine, and the telemedicine, the equipment. So I hope that Inaba-san, you can share with us a more optimistic view of the opportunities that Israel is offering Japanese companies, and specifically your LPs. Inaba-san, could you hear me?
Hello. Hi. Thank you, everyone. Also, thanks for inviting me to this great opportunity. So, my name is Yusuke Inaba. I'm a managing partner of SBI Innovation Fund, which is Israel-based fund, but it's a member firm of SBI Group. So SBI, maybe some people are not so familiar with SBI, but SBI is the Japan-based financial group, and which has a venture capital arm, which is operating around $3.5 billion in the world, and which has also the internet-based financial services. And our team is based here, so we are on the ground team. Also, our team is mixed with Israeli great partners, and also two of us from Japan. Then, as Zeev mentioned, our fund is focusing on biotech. So we are investing in companies which are developing drug. So yeah, this field is because of the corona and for the great needs for the COVID-19 vaccine. So it's I think getting hot Then, yeah, so our portfolio, our fund invested in 9 biotech companies and 3 high-tech, and the fund is also 3 years old fund, but we had already 5 IPOs. One is coming, 4 already listed. So it's an exciting area. And in terms of the needs of, in terms of change related to COVID-19, so talking about our companies, now it's very difficult to do clinical trial because usually this clinical trial is done in hospital, but because of Corona, no one wants to go to hospital. So there is a great need to do clinical trial at home. I had even leukemia patient who is feeling very bad, and then it's a critical health issue, but they don't want to go to hospital because of the Corona, so they don't want to get infected by Corona. So this, so in Israel, there's some solution that they are helping both biotech company and also patient to do clinical trial at home. So these are kind of interesting area, I think, and also it's really beneficial for our biotech companies as well. It depends on how what the disease is that drugs are targeting to cure, but so this kind of thing is very helpful for our future health, because in this, as I said, in this current situation, it's difficult to develop a drug because we cannot do clinical trial at hospital, or at least it's slowing down the clinical trial processes. So yeah, this kind of technology.
Thank you.
Help. Yeah.
Thank you, Inaba-san.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about it's difficult, but you know, difficult times create opportunities, and of course, there is a race in the world to develop the right vaccine. So I hope that your company, with its exposure to what is going on in the world in that sense, can you know, assist the Israeli startups. But now I want to turn to, last but not least, to Eli. Eli is with NTT DoCoMo Ventures, which is the venture capital arm of NTT DoCoMo. And NTT DoCoMo is, of course, the predominant mobile phone operator in Japan. In the last few years, NTT DoCoMo Ventures did minority investments in several Israeli startups. And I would ask Eli, because you know NTT DoCoMo does not need too much of explaining who it is. I would ask you maybe to share with us a comparative view of NTT DoCoMo Ventures investments in other places in the world in this time, so we can, you know, compare it to what they are doing in Israel and what maybe other Japanese companies will do in Israel. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much, Zeev. It is a pleasure to be here with friends and esteemed panelists. Obviously, NTT DoCoMo needs no introduction. It is a very significant technology supplier in Japan, well beyond telecom in many areas of the Japanese economy. And I think in many ways we embody the relationship between Israel and Japan. NTT DoCoMo Ventures is a $700 million vehicle that is very strategic money for the NTT group. Last year was very active. We made 30 investments in 2019, of which 20 were outside Japan. And to your question, Zeev, we have an office in the Silicon Valley, and yours truly as a venture advisor in Israel. These are the two outfits outside of Japan, and With that, at least last year, we made 20 investments outside of Japan, so fairly active. 6 investments in Israel, so also quite active here. I think the very fact that there is a venture advisor on the ground in Israel, and this is the only non-US physical presence that NTT DoCoMo has, also says a lot about how strategic the relationship between Israel and Japan is, and how NTT DoCoMo views that relationship, at least in my view. We are continuing, I wouldn't say 100% as normal, but pretty much as normal. Obviously, things have slowed down a bit because physical travel is not possible, and in Japan, physical meetings are now more difficult. But we are continuing to invest, continuing to work, looking at new companies as we speak. We're actually seeing some very good deal flow. This is a good opportunity. I think Israeli startups, as do any companies, realize that in these times, it is imperative to get new capital, and in our case, when this capital comes with a strong commercial partnership, it's even a force multiplier. So I think one can look at COVID times, at least from the digital transformation perspective, as the great accelerator. As Dennis said before, 2 years worth in 2 months. I've heard 5 years worth in 5 weeks. I think it's a great opportunity for technology providers such as NTT DoCoMo. It's a great opportunity for Israeli startups that power with their innovation many of these technology providers. And we are working as strong as we can, and actually moving meetings to Zoom, I think, over the medium term will hasten and strengthen our relationship. Because if previously we had to fly to do physical meetings, I think now it's very legitimate to do many meetings over Zoom, much more so than before. And we can just accomplish more.
Thank you, Eli.
Flying. Thank you, Zeev.
Thank you very much. I share Eli's view that, and we sense it here in our, in our practice, that this Zoom kind of relationship that is being developed is replacing quite successfully even the personal meeting. Of course, I'll pity if that will mean that I can't travel to Japan as much as I do, but I think that it works, of course, with Israelis. It starts to work with Japanese, and from my personal experience, Japanese are more, available these days because some of them are at home and some of them are, they travel less, so they are more available to discuss, and they are eager to have some, new ideas. And with this, I want to turn to David again and ask David, it took us time, and you also were in this, kind of campaign to convince the Israeli startups that that when they, not to neglect the East, not only go to the US or Europe, but go to the East. And the East, of course, for us means Japan. Now, these days, when you look at, when you are an Israeli startup, how do you convince him, or what do you tell him? Should he turn his efforts these days, post-corona, to the US, to Europe, or to the East and primarily Japan?
Just a second, Zeev-san. We have a question from the audience, from Mr. Nobu Ibara from Waseda University, Japan. So if you can open the chat and read the question, so we can answer later.
Thank you.
David?
Yeah. So I think we need to look into your question in perspective of time. So indeed, for many years, Japan was not open so much for the Israeli startups. This has to do a lot with the fact that for years, the distance, the physical distance, the information about Israel, the image of Israel was quite restricting the development of this relationship. I remember I studied and worked in Japan, in the beginning of the 90s, 1990 to 1995. Many people in Japan didn't know much about Israel. And those who knew thought it's a place not so pleasant for various reasons. This has been changing over the years. And let's say in the beginning of 10 years ago, it was still difficult for Israeli startups to penetrate Japanese market because the Japanese was very, very much, I'm talking now business corporation, very much focused on internal innovation, developing everything by themselves. Recently, let's say in the last 5 years in Japan, the idea of open innovation, meaning external innovation, bringing external innovation has been developed dramatically. And we can see more and more Japanese business corporations are willing to accept innovation that is coming from outside, whether they invest into companies, buy companies, taking license from other companies and so on. So we can see that Japan is really, really eager, as opposed to previous decades, very eager to bring in innovation that they cannot, I would say, make by themselves in Japan. So in this sense, the atmosphere for Israeli companies, for innovation coming to Israel has changed dramatically over, as I say, with perspective of 30 years, I can say in the last 5 years is a really, really peak. So the Israeli startups should know that when they are coming to Japan, first they are coming to a very, very welcoming, positive environment that wants really to get the innovation and make partnerships with Israel. There are several already success stories. We don't have time to go through all of them, but success stories of those partnerships, collaboration between Japanese and Israel. Second is the fact that once, and this is general thing for Israelis should know about Japan, it's difficult to get into the relationship because of the built-up trust. To build the trust, it takes time. Israelis sometimes are not patient to this long process of getting the trust. But once you have a partner, a Japanese partner, this is forever, for long, long term. So it's really worth. This is what I want to emphasize to the Israelis always. Don't go just for the easy. Go where you think the biggest potential you have, and make yourself patient a little bit to develop the relationship, because once you have the beginning, it goes for many years. It's really worth the effort.
Thank you, David. Who would want to pick up the question from, who from the panelists would like to pick up the question from the dog? Please go on.
Okay. First of all, regarding the issue of meeting and using Zoom instead of meeting, one thing which is missing is how to drink sake through the Zoom. So we are developing, actually one of our companies developed such an application or something similar to it, not exactly sake, but and the whole idea is, and that's investment we have done just before the Corona without knowing about the Corona. But these are guys that are in video manipulation. Actually, they open companies, went public with them. It's very, very savvy guys. And they do, the whole idea is to do such a conference call, video conference call, while you feel that you're sitting with the other guys. It's much more realistic. It's like one table, we sit all together, we look one at the other, it's the whole issue. And all it's done by video manipulation. And I do believe that they just are coming at the right time with the right concept. But back to the question that was asked, I do believe that one of the good things about Israel is, in general, Israel is our structure to deal with bad situations, with surprises, with severe situations. And because Israelis are not so good in order, but they are very good in thinking out of the box and facing something that shake your world, hey, this is us. Come to us. We will know how to manage it. We will adapt ourselves and we'll come with the right solution. So clearly there will be many good opportunities in Israel. And by the way, I can say because we are not raising money currently. So, but clearly there are great opportunities in Israel. There'll be many more. And I see that this cooperation between the Japanese with the very, very good order and ability to execute so nicely with the crazy Israelis, disordered, but on the other side, thinking out of the box is a very, very good combination.
Thank you, Dov. We are looking forward for this application that you are mentioning, especially the sake one. But what? Yes, Kampai. Let's what I want to ask whoever picks up the question from me is when you talk now to, you have this community of startups that are listening to you, which one would suit, which sectors would suit Japan more than other, markets? And taking into consideration that Japan in itself is a very, very big market by itself. So even if US or Europe will recover later, still the Japanese market is offering a lot of opportunities by itself, being a 130 million people market and neighboring country, of course. So what kind of, is there any kind of specific technologies or sectors which will be more suitable at this time to Japan? Who would like to pick up this question?
Zeev, you were asking a $1 million question.
Of course. 100 million.
Yeah, but I just want to one comment, add the one comment, because to distinguish the Israeli venture capitalist mentioned about from the Israeli side. So I want to represent some of the Japanese members here. I think there's a lacking of information about the Japanese companies too in Israel. For example, looking at my last name, Mizuno, if I go to Cuba, for example, they know about the company, what they do, how much they provide, what's the revenue side. They know about the company. But here, nobody understands that Mizuno is, and they don't know about they don't have much information about Japanese companies. When we have partners coming to Israel and then providing their information about their companies, what they can provide, what they have behind their company, clients, everything, there's an opportunity, and there's a missing piece of for the Israeli market. I think this is one of the important things that not only the specific industry, but Japan's market and also Japanese companies' capability itself is still opportunity for the Israeli market, and we need to expose that. I just want to mention that. I want to represent and protect the Japanese companies. We not only the Israeli side, but also we have our own opportunities in the Japanese side.
Thank you, Atsushi-san. Dear friends, listen. We will try this time to be more Japanese and less Israelis, and end our session on time, which is 10 o'clock. I want just to respond to Atsushi, to your complaint. When you say it's enough in Israel, if you say Japan, to attract the attention of so many people. They admire it, they like it, they love it, and they think there are vast opportunities there. So you don't have too much of a difficult job when you come as a Japanese to tell an Israeli startup that you want to invest and you have added value. So as I said, we are trying to keep the time. This was very short. And of course, each one has his credo and he needs to present it, including myself. So we didn't have time to exchange views, but this is only the first one, and we'll try to do more with the Dove application of Sake on Zoom or without. Thank you very much, all of you, for attending, for expressing your views. And believe me, I am I have many, many years, and I saw the relation with Japan going up and down and middle, so I can truly and confidently be very optimistic about the continuing of the relationship. Thank you very much, and domo arigatou gozaimasu, and see you all soon again.
Thank you very much. Thank you for organizing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye. I will finish the webinar.